But let's begin with the latest surrounding the historic indictment of former President Donald Trump. In just the next couple of hours, we expect Trump to leave his residence in Bedminster, New Jersey, and head to Miami, where he should be in front of the magistrate judge tomorrow to enter a plea after being indicted on 37 counts. Now, this is a judge who will not be the controversial Judge Aileen Cannon. Judge Cannon will be responsible for overseeing the trial itself, but not tomorrow's arraignment. But we're just learning there could be changes to that plan. So let's bring in NBC News correspondent Garrett Haake in Miami for us, NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley, and Catherine Christian, former assistant Manhattan district attorney and an MSNBC legal analyst. Garrett, we're just getting some new reporting that apparently Trump's having a hard time finding a lawyer ahead of that hearing tomorrow. What does this mean for the proceedings?
Well, look, Anna, everybody involved hopes this is a pretty straightforward federal arraignment tomorrow in which the former president gets in and out, he gets processed, he has his moment in court, maybe just as short of a time as 10 minutes or so, and then he's out of here. But one of the things that's not entirely clear right now is who would be representing Mr. Trump in the courthouse behind me. Remember, his two lead attorneys who've been working on this case both resigned late last week, Friday morning, fairly abruptly. They suggested that there would be new counsel being hired to help represent Mr. Trump in Florida. That counsel, if it has been hired, has not been announced yet. Now, of course, Donald Trump has lots of lawyers who work for him, including some presumably that are barred here in the state of Florida, meaning that they can practice in a federal courtroom in Florida. But we don't know who they are yet right now. And if there's not an attorney kind of ready to go with him, it's possible we could see some of these proceedings delayed. But again, the former president expected to be in Florida today, later this afternoon. We'll be watching this closely to see whether this sort of attorney question gets cleared up before tomorrow morning.
And so assuming this hearing does happen, walk us through or set the stage about what we'll see and what you're learning about Trump's plans after his arraignment.
Well, again, the arraignment itself should be fairly bare bones, perhaps even shorter than what we saw in New York City, because the way that the federal magistrate judge system works, there won't be kind of these extra issues that'll be brought up. It'll be, potentially the reading of the charges, reading of the indictment, which could be waived. There'll be a plea deal. There'll be conditions of release, and that's about it. As for the politics of it, well, Donald Trump's been very clear over the weekend. He intends to fight this thing tooth and nail on the political stage, including when I had a chance to ask him about it on Saturday as he was talking to voters in Georgia. Here's what he told me.
We did nothing wrong whatsoever. We did absolutely nothing wrong. Take a look at the Presidential Records Act. We did it by the book. Perfect. Except we have thugs and creeps running this country, and it's a real problem for our country. Yes.
Every time we air this clip, I have to fact check it. You can look at the Presidential Records Act. In fact, the National Archives tweeted out a very helpful FAQ about what it says, including that presidents have to separate out their personal from their presidential records before they leave office. There's nothing in it about going home and doing it after the fact, turning your homework in late, so to speak. But the former president does have a political playbook for indictments and arraignments now. He'll basically be following a very similar pattern to what he did in New York a couple of months ago. He will leave here, fly back to his golf club in New Jersey in this case, where he's holding a fundraiser and giving a speech. His campaign raised something like $12 million in the week around his last indictment. It's a feat they are hoping to repeat this time. Anna?
And Julia, as we mentioned, the judge assigned to this case is Judge Aileen Cannon, who was previously involved in proceedings related to the Mar-a-Lago search and made very favorable rulings for Trump that were twice overturned by a federal appeals court with several of its judges appointed by Trump, I do want to mention. So what are you learning about how Cannon was selected here and her role moving forward?
Well, that's right. This is a judge, a Trump appointee, who has a history of stepping beyond her legal authority to issue Trump favorable rulings. And that's according to a 3-judge panel. 2 of those were also Trump appointees who nullified her ruling to appoint a special master in the case to review whether or not the FBI even had the authority to look at those documents that they seized from Mar-a-Lago last summer. Now, what we're learning is that this was a random appointment. My colleague Ken Delanian said that because because the prosecution wanted this to be viewed in the Northern Division of the Southern District of Florida. They checked that box, which meant that there were only about 4 or 5 judges to choose from, and it's just chance that she was chosen. Now, a court official recently told the New York Times that this all happened according to proper procedure. It was a random selection. In other words, we're not getting any indications that there was some kind of political maneuvering by the Trump team behind the scenes, that she was randomly selected. And what's more is that the only way for her to leave this case would be if she herself decided to recuse or step down. It would be very hard to take this case away from her. But just like we saw last year when that case was her ruling was nullified by that 3-judge panel, again, there are checks and balances within our judicial system. So any ruling she makes could also be checked. It could be appealed. There could be other people who could come in and try to check her power here. She's not omnipotent, but of course it is a concern for prosecutors to have someone who has shown her favoritism for the former president previously to now be overseeing this important case, even though what they've built is, as of course Barr said, such a very compelling and detailed case. Also, former Attorney General Eric Holder just yesterday talked to MSNBC's Jen Psaki. Here's what he had to say.
I'm concerned about her handling this case. Based on what she did in the earlier phases of this matter, I'm not sure that she has the legal acumen to be a judge in charge of such an important case.
So you can see a lot of questions coming up around her role in this case.
And I just want to drill down for an extra moment into how important Judge Cannon will be. As the judge, we know Cannon will guide how quickly the case goes to trial. She'll oversee the selection of the jurors, can determine what evidence can be presented to the jury. So, Catherine, do you have concerns about Judge Cannon being judge in this case?
No, I don't. Part of the reason is you will never hear me publicly criticize a judge. She has been reversed twice. Judges hate to be reversed. It's embarrassing. And hopefully that will humble her. This is going to be the most watched trial ever. Forget OJ. This is going to be the most watched trial. She has an incentive to be fair and impartial, because if she isn't, a black cloud will be over her head for the rest of her career. If she is fair and impartial, the only thing she has to worry about is Donald Trump criticizing her. That's the only thing. But I am hopeful she will rise to the occasion. She will follow the law. In terms of her not knowing and not having the legal abilities, that's what you have clerks for, who will do the research and will get her up to speed. I think to say, well, the D.C. judges know more than the Florida judges, I just don't think that's true. But I think she has every incentive for her professional stake to be fair and impartial.
Let's just talk about for a moment what's in this 49-page indictment. It's all marked up here. And what we're seeing now in terms of the reaction, finally, that it's been released. People have been able to read it for themselves. I encourage people at home to do that as well. It's on NBCnews.com. But let's listen to what Trump's former Attorney General Bill Barr had to say following his reading of it.
If even half of it is true, then he's toast. I mean, it's a very detailed indictment, and it's very, very damning. Yes, his adversaries have obsessively pursued him with phony claims, and I've been at his side defending against them when he is a victim. But this is much different. He's not a victim here.
Catherine, this is Bill Barr. We all remember how he behaved as Trump's AG. He said it himself. He was defending Trump at every turn, it seemed. How significant is it for him to make this assessment?
Very significant. He is, whatever you think about him politically, he's a very experienced attorney, a former prosecutor. What's interesting about this indictment is the way it was written. It was written for lay people. You don't have to be a criminal lawyer to understand it. There's no legalese. It is very detailed, very straightforward. There's no reliance on any legal, novel theories. It's very straightforward. If the facts are true, it details the willful retention of these classified documents. What I find very interesting when I read it multiple times is how micromanaging Mr. Trump was over this, over the moving, the packing, the storage, the retention of these documents. His hands were all over it. So he can't say, oh, my aides did it. I don't know what happened. Even his prior statements, he makes it clear they're my documents. That's his view of them.
Just real quick, every indication is Trump is going to fight this to the bitter end. But if you're his lawyers, I do wonder, having read this indictment, if they may be thinking perhaps a plea deal, would it be in their client's best interest? What do you think?
Well, what you do, you never, and I do defense work, you never base a plea just on the indictment. You wait for the evidence. You say, Mr. Trump, listen to this audio. Is that you? You have him read the text messages between his employees. Do you know who these employees could be? Did this happen? So you go through all of the evidence with your client, and if there are not any legitimate defenses, you sort of say, well, it's going to be kind of hard to combat these facts because it seems like they have a lot of proof. So what's in the indictment? There's going to be much more proof that we don't know about, that he will be privy to as part of the discovery process.
And some of these charges have sentences up to 20 years in prison, so the stakes are high as far as the potential consequences here for the former president. Catherine Christian, Garrett Haake, Julia Ainsley, thank you all for this discussion.